What happens when the federal government demands access to state voter rolls, and what happens when states say no? Today, the Trump administration and its allies are once again pressuring states over voter data, raising alarms about election interference, voter intimidation, and federal overreach. Some states are complying, others are pushing back. Rhode Island is firmly in that second camp. Joining me today is Secretary of State Gregg Amore to explain what the Trump effort is all about, how Rhode Island is responding, and why the stakes go far beyond one election or one candidate. This is about who controls our elections and whether states can protect voters from political intimidation.
Bartholomew Town.
And we are brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online. Take charge of the future with the University of Rhode Island's fully online data tech and STEM programs designed to propel your career forward. Make an impact in the innovation of tomorrow with programs including quantum computing, UX, UI design, and nuclear engineering. Dive into data with their data science programs or elevate technologies to the next level with Industry 4.0. With 100% online courses, you'll gain the skills you need to thrive, all on your own schedule. Visit uri.edu/online today to begin exploring your journey to career advancement. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us. Hey, welcome into Bartholomew Town. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Look, we heard a couple of weeks ago this remark from President Trump that, the Republicans should consider nationalizing elections in 15 crooked states. And this was just all part of an ongoing theme of vote or election skepticism on the part of Trump and the Trump machine, so to speak, right? Now, there's a couple of different lanes to look at this with. There's plenty of reason to assume, consider, or even make the declaration that what we've seen in places like Los Angeles or Minneapolis is some kind of warm-up to the midterm or 2028 presidential elections in terms of whether you want to call it normalizing or developing efficiencies with National Guard or other troops on the ground in cities. So there's this kind of dystopian level to it, and it's just as dystopian even without the incursion of a military-style force. Any manipulation of the voter rolls, of data around voting, is obviously at the heart of anti-democracy. And so these questions are legitimate questions that are all part of this theme of skepticism, and potentially we'll see actual manipulation at some level if the Trump administration gets its way, it seems. And they have now requested access to state voter rolls. Some states have complied, others have not. Rhode Island has not complied. And that's exactly why, in tandem with kind of this concert of thematic conversation and nonsense that we hear woven in and out of other discussions from the Trump administration, that's exactly why it was so important to bring on Secretary of State Gregg Amore here and get a sense for all of you of exactly what's happening from Rhode Island's standpoint right now. Because this is a major issue. That's the thing, folks. Right now, it's one of those moments, and we're living through this unbelievable fire hose of information, fire hose of tragedy, fire hose of unbelievable situations unfolding on what seems to be a moment-by-moment basis, never mind day by day or hour by hour. And so this exhaustive effort, whatever story, whatever situation, internationally, nationally, even on a hyper-local level, it's all meant to drown things out, and drown things out that really matter, like voter rolls, like election integrity. And so you don't have to be a political science PhD to understand what's happening right now between the Trump administration and secretaries of state around this country, select secretaries of state who have decided to push back in particular. But ultimately, all of us. You don't have to have any kind of expertise to understand that this is extremely dangerous. So Secretary of State Gregg Amore is set to join us here in just a few moments on Bartholomew Town, where we are here for you every Tuesday and Thursday with new episodes. And you can also hear our syndicated radio program on WPRO radio, over the weekends. A couple other things I want to note here. We had talked extensively last year, and we're going to be doing some significant work this year on hazing in our community. Obviously, we think of the Smithfield incident with the Smithfield football team, that unbelievably ridiculous situation where the allegations of anti-Semitism and brutality, frankly, that took place in Smithfield, and then the ensuing pushback from some members of the community. Well, it wasn't anti-Semitic, it was just regular hazing, so you got to let them off the hook. I mean, these are the types of things that are that you look out and you say, well, what world are we living in that there's any acceptable arena where a freshman or anybody can be beaten, hazed, whatever, and that is just normalized. It's just written into normalization culture. And that's exactly what was happening in Smithfield. From some people who said, you know what, they're just kids. It wasn't even anti-Semitic. It was just regular hazing. So the stupidity of this conversation was already kind of at a boiling point when we had this horrible incident at Rogers High School, actually a series of incidents involving the football team down in Newport. You may remember that one. There were 4 kids arrested for it. In videos, it showed members of the football team whipping and beating a student with special needs. One of the most disgraceful and disgusting series of videos that I've seen in a long time. And I said at the moment, they need to institute a death penalty style situation at Rogers High School. That means the coach is gone, the athletic director is gone, the principal's gone. You need to reset the entire operation. What do? They suspended team play for the remainder of the semester, or the remainder of the season. All they had was left on the schedule was a junior varsity game against Tiverton on Thanksgiving Day. There was no tangible programmatic punishment. All right. And so I was extraordinarily upset about this. I know a lot of you were as well. Yesterday, Steve O'Donnell, the former superintendent of the state police, now in private practice as a security consultant, really, who was retained by Newport to look into this, he put forth a greater than 24 bullet point recommendation finding executive summary. And as a result of that, the principal of Rogers High School has been placed on leave for the remainder of the season. They're going to make that person the fall guy for all of the lack of communication and the siloing that is reportedly taking place at Rogers High School, per that Steve O'Donnell report, that led to the conditions that allowed for this to ferment. And that's one way of looking at it. And here's the other way of looking at it. That was a disgraceful incident. And it should serve as a mile marker in this state and this community, never mind the state boundary, as a community resonator to say, we are not going to tolerate anything that is even in the same universe as what took place at Smithfield, Rogers, period. Hazing should result in expulsion from interscholastic activities for the season at minimum. And if it's a programmatic thing, that program needs to go away, period. Coach, athletic director, boosters, whoever, it needs to be replaced with new people. But at least there's some accountability now down at Rogers that's taking place. One other thing that's really of note, and by the way, on the hazing stuff, we're going to dig into that. There's a bill that's been put forth by Reps McNamara and Casey that will seek to increase penalties for hazing and things like this in athletics. So we'll be digging into that coming up later on in the General Assembly session. Another piece of legislation that caught my eye yesterday, this is David Tikoyan and others, Senator Tikoyan, legislation that would increase or would be designed to make it a felony to assault a sports official. Now, some of you know, many of you know, I spent 20 years as a sports official. I got out of it. It's not worth the money for the harassment and the utter sewer that many of these environments have become. It makes me sad to say it. It's just the reality. And you've got referee shortages left, right, and center all over the place. Here in Rhode Island, you've got a huge referee shortage. You've got a huge referee talent shortage as well, even among those who are working. No disrespect. You don't have that training and up-and-coming class of people that you can retain for a 30, 40, 50-year span that you did in previous generations. There's already a law in the book that it is a felony to assault a youth sports official. This will raise it to a general, any athletic competition. It's sad we need this, but we do. And we'll dig into that a little bit more. Senator Tikoyan, a little bit under the weather right now. So he's not able to join us, and we'll get to him both on the radio and here on the podcast with that coming up. So all of that, a lot going on, obviously, plenty to discuss, but those are a couple of things that caught my attention. Couple other notes coming up on February 24th, live at Johnson & Wales University, Bartholomew Town Live. in the auditorium, I will be joined by C. Morgan Greff of the Rhode Island Historic Societies. We talk about the 250 here in Rhode Island and beyond. That's a live event. If you want more information, Bill at ripodcast.com. I think there's still some tickets available for that, but they are going fast. It's Bartholomew Town Live at Johnson & Wales University in downtown Providence on the 24th of February. And if you're listening to this show on release day or thereabouts, I'll be on Ocean State Media, that's formerly Rhode Island PBS, for Lively with Jim Hummel and Barbara Ann Fenton Fong. We are brought to you in part by Navigant Credit Union. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org. The Trump administration, elections. It's a conversation that a lot of people aren't having, and we should be having on a grandiose level. We'll at least have it with our own Secretary of State, Gregg Amore, right now on Bartholomew Town.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
Nationalize the voting. Secretary of State, your reaction?
Yeah, no United States president should ever talk about nationalizing voting. First and foremost, because it's unconstitutional. I wish I could say that surprised me, but it does not. There have been a number of attempts in both Trump administrations to try to have a national influence, a federal influence over elections. So it doesn't surprise me, but it should bother Americans because the president of the United States has no role in elections. And that is made clear by the Constitution, and it's made clear by the founders' intent.
Let's talk about a bit of a standoff, if you will, between some states that have elected to not turn over their voter rolls to the administration, Rhode Island being one of them. You're on the front lines of this. What is the status quo right now of the back and forth between federal and state election oversight, if you will, on access to voter rolls or anything else in that same breath, if you will?
Yeah, so it's actually 24 states, and there are Democratic-led states and Republican-led states, and I'm talking about secretaries of state. The case has been the case to ask for private information as part of the voter lists, which is normally redacted when that public list is sent to whomever requests it. The issue is that that's against the law, first and foremost, both federal law and state law. And we have seen in 3 courts already, 4 now, actually Michigan, where that has been dismissed. That case has been dismissed. So the lawsuits against those states, Michigan, Oregon, California, and Georgia, who did what we did, refused to hand over the personal information of their voters, they have been dismissed. The case in Oregon was dismissed with prejudice. And so I think you'll see that across the board, across the United States. We have also filed for dismissal.
There's something about this that it seems at odds with some conservative principles of federalization and the notion of having one government body at the federal level oversee elections was by design. It is intentional to not have that take place, to have literally every state or territory oversee its own elections. Why is that? Why is this happening right now where people who would traditionally be constitutional conservatives are saying, yeah, but you know what? Forget it for this one instance, this one minor instance that could see the end of democracy. What do you think it is?
You know what it is? It's primary elections. In order to run in the Republican Party and win a primary, you almost always have to have the support of Donald Trump. And if you are pushing back against him, even on constitutional issues, you threaten your political survival. When I was first elected and I attended my first National Association of Secretaries of State meeting, I heard Republicans say, we don't want federal interference in our elections. I heard them go as far as to say, we don't want your federal money. Elections are run by the states. The states' rights argument has always been, in the modern age, a Republican argument. It's always been a Southern argument. And I'm a constitutionalist, so I agree that the Constitution. There are places, Bill, where the Constitution's not clear and can be interpreted and has been interpreted differently depending on the era. But this is not up for interpretation. It's extraordinarily clear. Article 1, Section 4.
We've spent a lot of time, your predecessor and I on podcasts, you and I on podcast radio things, all kinds of people weigh in on the topic of Rhode Island supposedly having dead people voting, outdated or improper voter rolls. And evidence has shown time and time again, well, sure, there may be a discrepancy that occurs, as would be the case with any large body of data. It is just factually not true that Rhode Island's voter rolls are corrupt or manipulated in any way.
No, I would say they're the most secure they've ever been. And that's thanks to technology and thanks to constant voter list maintenance and cooperation with other states and federal agencies and state agencies. And the fact that we are a DMV state where you can register to vote through the DMV and change your voter registration data through the DMV, which is where the vast majority of our interactions happen.
What do you think the biggest threat is right now in terms of election integrity in 2026? And is that the same major threat that we will face in 2028?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of theories as to what may happen, but I think you're seeing now what the game plan is. The game plan is to sow enough doubt around the results of the election where there are Americans in large number questioning those results and not accepting those results. I mean, if the election were to be held today, the president's party would be defeated soundly, and the Senate may switch. And that was not. I don't think that was possible just 6 months ago. So I think the game plan is here. Look, the good news is states do administer elections, and not only states, but counties and local governments do administer elections. And there is strong federal law around keeping armed federal agents and the United States military away from polling locations. I'd like to hope that the reverse is going to happen. We're going to see a midterm turnout that goes beyond usual midterm turnouts, which are not much higher than 50%, and that people will push back. And we have seen that in the special elections.
It's definitely something that is on a lot of people's minds right now as they see the military style activity around the country tied to ICE or otherwise. A lot of stress around this issue right now. Secretary Amore, thanks so much for your time. Rhode Island definitely on the front lines, resisting, if you will, a lot of this, objectively is total nonsense.
My pleasure, Bill. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us here on Bartholomew Town, where we are here for you every Tuesday and Thursday, wherever you get podcasts, plus our weekend replay on WPRO Radio. We're also brought to you in part by Newport Film. Discover the latest screening details at newportfilm.com. I'm Bill Bartholomew. We'll talk next time. Bartholomew Town is brought to you by Navigant Credit Union, Half Street Group, the University of Rhode Island Online, and Newport Film.